I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, and this is the Doctor's Guide podcast, raw and unfiltered. And one of the things that I've noticed is that, how our food actually affects our lives in all shapes and forms. And, the truth is that a lot of us are afflicted by all sorts of anxiety issues or other mental issues that we're not so free in discussing with others because there's either shame or guilt or, whatever involved with any of that. And to combat those challenges that we have in our daily lives, we start looking on the internet, trying to uncover the kind of information that we believe that's actually going to help us. But with the overwhelming amount of information out there, it's really tough. And so what I want to share with you today is not share a specific product or a service that's going to support any particular condition that you have, because here's the truth. I don't know who you are. I don't know what your individual problems are. But what I do know, there is a smart process by which we can make better decisions. So how are we going to actually do that today? We're going to do that through role playing. And so I have these incredible individuals that get to join me on this podcast series that are their own authority in their own field and magnificent, educators and guides for all of us. And what they're going to do is they're going to portray a certain kind of problem. They're going to discuss a certain kind of problem, or one of them is going to come up with a problem that you may very well relate to and might actually trigger you too. And if it does trigger you, I invite you to stay in this and lean into it. And the other is going to guide the one with a problem to some sort of resolution. Clearly, it's a 6-minute, role play that we're not going to come to a final resolution. What I want you to get out of this is some insight or some action plan that you can take for yourself so that you can begin to make the right decisions for you. And so I want to welcome both Misha and Lindsay today. I'm going to have them each, introduce themselves. Then we're going to talk about the problem, and then we're going to do the role play, and then we're going to go ahead and unpack all of that so that you can have a better understanding of something that might be very relevant to you. So Misha, thank you so much for joining me today. A brief introduction about yourself, then we'll go with Lindsay, and then we'll start with the role play.
Thank you for having me, Doctor. My name is Misha Hyman. I'm a chef. I run a company called the Health Warrior Project. I believe my mission in life is, I believe we can really change our food system, change our health system, change the health of our community, change the mental health of our community by changing how we eat, what we put in our bodies, how we change our lifestyles, yoga, meditation, simple things you can implement in your routine to lower inflammation, to actually reverse chronic disease and a lot of this, mental illness that we're dealing with, whether it's anxiety, depression, PTSD, symptoms from the pandemic, from daily life. And I believe if we really, simplify our life and really go to what's on our plate, what goes in our body, how we, sleep, hydrate, and nourish ourselves really is the core to most of our issues. So if we fix that, I believe we can fix most of our core issues that our planet faces today.
Oh, right on. And I can't wait to have a more in-depth conversation with you on all of that, because I think some clever philosopher in Greece many, many years ago said something like, food is thy medicine. And I know that's what's deep to your heart. Lindsay, thank you for joining me today. And a brief introduction about you.
I'm Lindsay O'Neill. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Bart. I am the founder of a small culinary medicine practice called Small Hinges Health. I am a TEDx speaker. I am a partner in a bioenergetic technology company called Immortal with an A. And I'm also single mom to 3 amazing little girls. So that's my background, but really the mission and vision for my life, very similarly to Misha, is to help people identify their bio-individual needs when it comes to diet and lifestyle, so that they can make very specific strategic changes in their diet and lifestyle over the course of time that will have a big impact on their overall health. And that's kind of where the concept for Small Hinges came from. It's a little bit of a weird name for a culinary medicine. Nobody wants to eat small hinges, but the concept is that there's small hinges that swing the big door of positive change, and that you don't really have to change the whole door. You just have to change those small strategic things. So that's my background, and I'm glad that Misha went first. So we did the beauty before the age today.
There you go. Yeah, and I totally agree with that, by the way. But here's the truth. With you, both of you incredible individuals sharing with us those micro distinctions about what it is that we do or don't do that make all the difference. But here's the other macro distinction I would say is that what you're actually proposing to us, and we'll discuss this later on, that these micro distinctions, they're actually very easy to do. And so you don't have an excuse not to do them. But anyway, we'll talk more about that in a moment. So Misha, I know you're going first. So what's the problem that you're presenting that you're going to get some guidance from Lindsay?
Yeah, so I deal with a lot of clients, a lot of friends, and me personally at times who deal with situational anxiety and depression. So I want to maybe approach Lindsay, who is a genius in her field of culinary medicine, and also one of the top biohacking mothers that I've known the past few years, and watching her be a great mom also is someone I think she can give great advice on this. So maybe we'll start with my scenario. Is that cool?
Yeah, it's perfect. And clearly she's got this radiant energy. So yeah, she's the genius today. So go ahead. You got 6 minutes.
Yeah, Lindsay. So I have a problem I'm dealing with. Maybe you can help me. Let's just say I came out of a really, long relationship that probably wasn't serving me very well, and moving into a new apartment and trying to focus on my business and trying to focus on my health. And I've noticed that a lot of the stress and anxiety is causing me to, lean into my potential coping mechanisms of eating too much processed food and gluten and glyphosate. So how can you help me maybe think of a plan to get out of this situation that I'm in? Because I'm really suffering, Lindsay, Chef Lindsay.
I'm so sorry, Misha. I'm sorry to hear that. And it sounds like you're on a slippery slope. And all of us get caught in this slippery slope, negative downward spiral at different points in our life. What specifically do you think you want to feel?
I think I want, the anxiety and the stress to dissipate. Feels like I'm being covered by a heavy blanket of stress and, I guess inflammation. I feel like my brain is super clogged, and my joints hurt and everything seems to hurt. But it doesn't hurt when I'm not feeling anxious. So maybe that's, because of my diet. But yeah, I just want to feel kind of free in my body and feel less like of a burden to my inner spirit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you want to feel clear, you want to feel peace, and maybe even happy. Do you think that that's possible for you?
When you say it like that, Lindsay, yeah. I mean, at the moment, it didn't seem possible because you're so stuck in your bubble. But yeah, I think that's possible.
And why do you think that you turn to eating this food when you're in that negative, slippery slope downward spiral?
Well, as a mother, I have a mother who's a recovering alcoholic and kind of bipolar. So I understand addiction sort of well, and someone who's a recovering codependent. I think I chose food as the least dangerous vice. But as I know, especially with anxiety, if you don't eat the right food, potentially it can, cause issues with your brain and your body and your joints. So I don't know. Maybe is that a reason I have anxiety?
There's a million reasons why you could have anxiety. We all feel different pressures at different times for different reasons. There's, even historical and other lifetime anxieties that can come up and can be triggered at any point in time. But do you feel like you're ready to feel good? You're ready to feel happy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. I think for a moment, it felt good to kind of be in that, not good, it felt comfortable to be in that space and wallow in that misery and feel sorry for myself. But yeah, I think I'm ready to not do that anymore. Yeah.
Well, that's great, because the clients that I work with, a lot of times they anxious attach to their illness or to a way of being, because you're right, it is comfortable to stay in that story, to stay in that triggered state, because it also proves that you're validated in your feelings. And even if your conscious mind really wants to get you out of it, sometimes our subconscious mind, which is 90 to 95% of our our mind that we don't even use, right? We're only accessing between 5 and 10% of our cognition at any given point. And that subconscious mind kind of keeps us safe, right? And it can keep us safe because it's something that we can potentially control. And it's interesting to me that, you addressed food as a coping mechanism because you're a chef. And so that's something that you can control pretty easily, right? You have access to food. You're able to whip up delicious delights all the time, no matter where you are. And so it's really about making better choices that are individual to you. So what do you love to eat? What makes you happy?
Ooh, I love Chinese food, like real authentic Szechuan or
Mm,
Hunan food, really good Thai food. Yeah. I like food that's actually not the food that I find myself eating is more like convenient food, stress food. I'm in a pinch, I'm moving out, I got to grab this, ordering the food, having a group of people around me, being in community. I'm rather just in a kind of almost like a manic running around state, and my food intake is a representation of that for sure.
do you have pockets?
Pockets.
Yes.
I also have a fanny pack. Yes, I have pockets.
Well, I don't think you can carry around, some Szechuan beef or chicken, but you could certainly have your pockets filled with some healthy snacks. There's a lot of really great snacks that we actually experienced at the biohacking conference. Some dehydrated grass-fed beef.
Oh yeah.
We had delicious delights. So would it be possible for you to maybe carry around something so that if you feel the urge to satiate something that's coming up for you, you can reach into your pocket and pop it in your mouth?
Yeah, I always tell my clients to have healthy snacks on them, and I rarely do. So good point. That's a good point.
Doctor, heal thyself first.
Yeah, don't trust exactly.
Okay,
Chef.
guys, you guys have 1 minute left.
Okay, great. So my last question for you is, what steps can you take today? What 2 or 3 things can you do today, do you think? Like what feels okay for you to do, whether it's meal prepping, whether it's meditating or getting yourself into a mode of manifestation, all of the things that you kind of know how to do and that you work on with your clients. What 2 or 3 things can you commit to today? And why would you commit to doing those?
Well, I think for me, one of the oops, sorry, my insurance company is calling. Can you still see me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think one of the first things I want to do is do a hot yoga class. I feel like I've been in my head and my body a lot past few days, and I really need to kind of get out of my head and my body. And I think, a hot yoga class would be great. I go to the Russian Turkish bathhouse in New York pretty often, so maybe we'll check that out again this week, maybe tonight, or if I'm lucky after this podcast. And then I think I'm gonna try to be in community. I have again, I told you my mother is an alcoholic, so I'm actually a part of Al-Anon. So I might join an Al-Anon meeting tonight. They have like a 12-step meeting for, if you don't know what Al-Anon is, it's people who have family members of people with substance abuse or alcoholism. So I think I might check that out to deal with my anxiety. But yeah, I think ultimately not feeling sorry for myself, but rather being proactive and productive and focusing on a next step is the best way forward.
I agree.
Awesome. Well, great, guys. Amazing. So many insights and so many takeaways. Want to start with you, Misha, first. Just briefly, what was that about for you? What was all that about for you?
In terms of why I brought that up, or
Yeah, why you brought it up? I mean, what is it that you're trying to portray so that people understand? What's the message? What's the problem? And just to qualify this for all the listeners, the purpose of the role playing is it's not necessarily a personal issue. More importantly, it's an issue that you can relate to and many people can relate to. And so when we listen to these things, don't think that Misha, it's his problem, but he's pretending or role playing a particular problem that he wishes you to know about because maybe he's seen a lot of these. So proceed.
Well, I don't know if you saw Lindsay smiling in the corner, but I do, I have a lot of clients that have this same experience. However, I am actually dealing with that almost identical scenario. And I had Lindsay actually be a support system to walk me through a lot of things. And she actually almost nailed everything she brought up to me. But in 2019, I was diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, and depression from the Amen Clinic in New York City. And since then, I've been on a journey to really understand mental illness, understand anxiety, depression, understanding the role, how food plays into it, how your environment, circumstance, so on and so forth, genetics plays a part. But I really noticed a lot of people, especially in my network, in LA, Miami, Austin, New York, where I kind of work mostly, people are talking about anxiety, depression, mental illness, but they're not actually doing the work that in my opinion, is like the real deep inner child work, the, family constellation, the, potentially using, plant medicines if it's under legal terms with, with the correct guides. But I think it's really interesting that a lot of people are, especially after the pandemic, are not actually diving deep into like how they're feeling, how they're showing up, how the community is showing up. And I see that as part of the degradation of a lot of our communities and our society as a whole, of just not dealing with our inner stuff. So I just brought that up because it was just top of mind, and I could have thought of another one of another issue, but I think that was just relevant because Lindsay and I could riff on that. We had some previous conversations on that, but I think to me it's a really important thing to talk about, especially for men. Like a lot of men are not talking about their issues, and I have a lot of people in my network the past 3 or 4 years that have committed suicide and haven't really tapped into their network and their community. So I think being a leader in the space of mental health and wellness and nutrition, is I have an obligation to kind of share my story a little bit, to tap into that at least.
Yeah, and again, I mean, thank you for that, and thank you for that vulnerability. And the truth is that these are the very conversations that I'm wanting to have, because these are the conversations that you don't easily come by, that are real and raw and authentic, so that people recognize, they're not on their own. And the truth of the matter is, as intense as any kind of experience is, there are many relatively simple and very controllable and affordable solutions out there, as long as you have the right guidance. And that's, again, why I'm the guide here. You're the guide. Lindsay is the guide in serving and helping people with a different approach that hasn't worked before. So, I honor you with that in a wonderful way. Lindsay, what was that for you? And then we're going to unpack more deeply about the situation at hand and what we can do about it.
Well, I just I love the open conversations and cherish them so deeply within my soul that I've had with Misha over the course of the last few weeks, since we've really gotten to know each other. Because as if you think about like therapists, every therapist has a therapist, because we need to unpack and go through our own process. We're still human. And even though Misha and I are both healers and culinary medicine chefs, and we know a lot, and we've journeyed through our own pain to find our purpose, and that purpose has led us to a passion for helping others navigate that journey as well, we still come across roadblocks on our journey. And it's important to have that community and to be open and vulnerable enough to ask for help and to ask for guidance and to reach out, because as practitioners, we sometimes get anxiety and potentially even insecurity. I know I do, asking for help, because I want to be of value to my clients. And I want to share the knowledge that I've acquired through the journey of my lifetime so far. But I'm still always learning. It's like I tell my kids, be a sponge that's never full. Continue to absorb information and lean on people that you trust to provide a safe space for you so that you can show up as your best self, not only for yourself, but also for your clients, for other people, because you never know what impact you're going to have on somebody's life just in a short 6-minute conversation with that person.
No, spot on. And the great thing about a sponge, you can collect and soak up all the water, but you can also wring out the stuff that you don't want. So that's a great metaphor. And I know you meant that as well. And here's the truth is that, when we're surrounded by all these rules and regulations and guidelines and how you should be and how you shouldn't be, and it really kind of messes up with our head, because in my opinion, and the truth of Abraham Maslow, who was in feud with Freud, and saying, look, this is all about positive psychology, and everybody's born with a positive intent and basically good or neutral. But what happens later on is that we get misguided, and it's not necessarily intentional, but we've learned a lot of things, growing up that don't serve us today. And without knowing that, without having the proper guidance, and without having the proper community, you're going to be stuck. And so I love what you said about being vulnerable and being open, and especially being open to have someone tell you, how things can be different. But you still have to stand guard at the door of your brain, because a lot of stuff out there is, even if it's well intended, it's in the wrong context. It's not going to serve you. And so that's why all of this is always going to be an experiment. This is an open conversation, just like you said, Lindsay. And so for the listener out there, is find somebody, as Lindsay says, someone who you can trust. And you can absolutely trust Lindsay and Misha on these kinds of things. And I know that they have their programs, and that you're going to want to reach out to them and start having that conversation, that safe space. But the most important thing is you got to be okay that you're going to mess up. I mean, even on this podcast, I fumbled a few words in the past. I would be ashamed, like, oh my gosh, I can't post this now. But here's the truth. We're human. We make mistakes, and we're constantly learning. So I'm going to leave it to you guys to add some more, anything you want to share at this point. We have a few more minutes before I ask both of you to tell us a little bit more about yourselves and where we can find you. But what else would you like to share that you think is really important? Because I know we could talk a whole hour about this topic.
We could.
Yeah. Go, Lindsay.
Oh, sorry. Honestly, as a mother, I've been thinking about this a lot, the different perspectives, because as parents, we really only want what's best for our kid, but we can't live their lives for them. And we can't tell them what to do. We can't force them to learn something in our timeline, and when we need them to, for our own ego's sake, or feeling safe and secure. And so one thing that I've learned through parenting and from my kids is that just providing that space, that openness, and being vulnerable with them, and also creating a community so that they could go to somebody else and ask them questions, because they don't always want to come to mommy and ask questions, or daddy. But having that community of people who are providing that safe space for you to share, to ask for help, to grow, to learn, to step into who you are, to make mistakes if you're going to make mistakes, because that's how we learn, right? Birds don't just fly, like the Shakira song. Birds don't just fly, they fall down and then they get up and they learn how to flap their wings, and they learn how to take flight and navigate the skies. So that's what I'll say about like parenting. But even if you're not a parent, if you're working with clients, if you're a doctor, if you're, a colleague, if you're an executive at a company, it's really creating the same space. It's the same thing, just in a different type of environment.
And if you have a hard time finding that, then create your own. Misha.
I was going to say basically the same thing Lindsay was going to say about, asking for help. That's one of the things that I've noticed is really hard for a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people who have any kind of childhood trauma. Just asking for help is really difficult and really humbling, really humiliating also. But I think, my biggest problems in life have probably stemmed from me thinking that I could do it alone, or not asking someone to, bounce an idea off them or troubleshoot a concept that I'm working through with them. And, I think, Lindsay kind of nailed it right on the head. You need to find a community. You need to find people that you're aligned with, kind of heart-centered with, and you want to do life with. And I think for me, really tapping into that of realizing that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to, ask Lindsay, how many times the past week have I texted you saying, hey, I need help. I need just advice. I need just to text me and just say what's up. Like, and she was like actually a rock for me. So it's really great that she asked me today to be in this podcast and we can talk about this, because it's a real life scenario happening real time to a real person right now. Maybe you're watching this in a month. It's August 9th. I'm in it right now, but I just want to say, like, yeah, you have to be able to really, you believe that you can't do it by yourself, right? And a lot of us think that we're burdening other people by asking for help. And a lot of us are inspired to help people. Like, when people ask me for help, I get energy from giving them advice, and I feel better by knowing that they have they're kind of calm that night and go to sleep with their mind at rest by advice I've given them. So I think, yeah, just asking for help and looking for a community that's not going to always give you constructive criticism, that will support you when you do, when you make mistakes. And again, we're human, we all make mistakes. And I think a lot of us forget that. We think we have to be perfect, and we don't.
No, I love that. Giving yourself permission to be human. And I guess that's why, Lindsay's voicemail is full and she hasn't answered any of my calls.
Yeah, right.
Well, I was actually, I had an anaphylactic reaction to a medication last week, and I was in the ER, and then I was in a medical fog from all the Benadryl that they were giving me. And Misha was so helpful. Tinctures and little things. And one fun fact of Misha and I, we actually have the exact same birthday.
Oh, wow. So cool is that. So what's your birthday? So we all know.
September 27th.
All right. We won't
10
ask.
flowers to Harrison, New York.
We won't ask for the year. And one fun fact: one of my best friends who actually worked with me for a long time, same year, same month, same day. It was crazy.
Wow.
And
Wow.
found her in my neighborhood and learned a lot of things, from her. So what I hear you both say is that you're incredible in giving people guidance in a variety of different areas that people can definitely count on. And there are ways for people to connect with you. And what I think is also really important is your honesty and vulnerability and sharing. Yeah, I had to deal with that pain. I had to deal with that suffering. And I made some really poor choices in that. And I chose to be a victim. I chose to be a sufferer. And you don't have to do any of that. And somehow, somewhere, you guys are able to get out of that. Obviously, still working on it, like all of us are, if we're honest, because none of us is invulnerable. None of us is not having these issues. Otherwise, you're just not being honest with yourself. But it's okay. It's okay to have those problems, and it's okay to ask for help. So my question for both of you, and I have my own answer, but one of the challenges I think that people have is, where do they go to find people that they can create a community, because it's not so obvious for many.
That's a really good question. I feel like I've met different people throughout my life based off of what I need. And, there's that whole manifestation process, and we go through it naturally without even having to follow any manifestation steps. But it's recognizing first kind of what you need and who you need in your life, and then having faith that that person kind of shows up. You could meet that person on the subway, in a public restroom, at a biohacking conference, like I met the two of you, at a work meeting, at a school meeting, at a play date with kids. But it is important to open yourself up, your heart, and to trust that the right people will show up. And then, the second part of that is how do you trust that person? And I don't know, Misha, why you trusted me so quickly. Maybe it's because I am a mom, or I'm an open book, and I don't know, but I trusted him as well very quickly. And Dr. Bart, I trusted you, almost immediately. You can kind of you use your intuition to guide you, and you stay open and vulnerable. But it's also like really getting clear on what you need and who you need, because people will come in and out of your life for a season, for a reason.
Yeah, no, spot on. Misha, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think kind of second. I mean, can you reframe the question? Because I kind of, if you went three ways that way, I don't.
So
Yeah.
one of the things I think that's so hard for people is, where do they go? I mean, how do they find the people so that they can create that community and find the help that they're looking for, that they don't even know that they need?
Yeah, I mean that can be really hard for a lot of people. I think, look at what you're interested in, right? So for me, I met a lot of people, I like to go to the sauna, I like to go to the Russian bathhouse. I mean, a lot of my network there. I like to biohack, go to these conferences, made a lot of my network there, yoga classes. So try to like align yourself with people that kind of do what you're interested in. Because again, you're the aggregate of the five closest people around you. So if you're around people who are moping around, depressed, not motivated, doesn't really want to impact the world, you're probably not going to have a great self-image. You're probably not going to, feel great about yourself and have great results. And if you're around people who are thriving and or striving for success and maybe thriving, and being in that, kind of aura really makes you, want to pick yourself up every morning and kind of follow that path. So I think try to find people, and if again that might sound difficult, but like go on meetups. You also can join like Facebook groups or Clubhouse. They have, people don't use Clubhouse as much, but they have groups where people can kind of, you can create a topic and you can start, topics, people jump in, but also like I always say, go to a yoga class, go to an exercise class, meet people who are actually tapping into their body, go on a hike with someone. Also like, men's group or women's group or something like that, I think is really important and impactful.
I think we make it a lot harder than it has to be. And the
Yeah.
truth is, I think you're both spot on. Actually, have some awareness of what it is that you need, or at least the fact that you need something. You may not be aware of what that is. But I find that the space of personal development and growth is a great place to go to, wherever that is. Anywhere where there's the opportunity to improve your health. So yoga is great.
Workshops,
Any
yeah.
wellness event is great. Any personal development space is great. And a lot of people seem to be critical of personal development, but guess what? We're our happiest when we get to grow. And just modeling other people that are successful, find out what other people are successfully doing. If you like, as Misha says, I mean, if you're connected with that energy, and I believe that's why Misha connected so well to Lindsay, and I connect with Lindsay as well because of that energy. In spite of the fact that it was a very intense environment for you, you still radiated that energy, and that's what we need to look for. Is find the people that we can learn from and really make a difference. So I like to wrap it up. We're way over time, but this is I know we could talk for an entire hour on all this, and maybe we need to do that. But last words from you, Misha, and where do people find you? And same thing with Lindsay, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at the Health Warrior Project. With my Instagram handle, and my other website is thehealthwarriorproject.com. You can DM me or you can go to my website and email me from my website. But yeah, I'm available. I really do a lot of retreats, catering, big events, small events, kind of curated family experiences, wellness experiences. So reach out to me. I'd love to support. And I have a lot of resources for people suffering with mental illness that I can tap you into in New York, LA, Miami, and Austin. So please reach out and love to support you.
And then any final comment you want to share?
Yeah, no, I think, we have to, my brand is called the Health Warrior Project because, the battle against our health and our mental health really has almost become a war, right? And I think we have to kind of think about winning the small battles and not winning the major war at once to not overwhelm us. And those small battles are just hydrating, sleeping well, eating the right foods, getting in community, doing a little exercise, meditation, all those things are pretty much free. And then you can add in the other high immortal technology, biohacking genius equipment. But just know that like you have to put your tool belt and put your kind of your equipment together to really go to battle. And I think, with Lindsay and what you're doing, Dr. Bart, and really just creating a network of healers and practitioners that kind of can relay this information to help you fulfill your tool belt is the best way to do it. So just be aware and be ready and do anything that you can to fight inflammation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Misha. And Lindsay, where do people find you? And a final comment from you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bart. So you can go to smallhinges.health, which is my website. You can follow me on Instagram at smallhinges, DM me. You can email me at info@smallhinges.health as well. And final thought, obviously everything that we've talked about today really resonates from the core, the soul of my being. And I didn't get to share this before, but I actually, majority of my career, 20 years of my career, was working in AI and big data and machine learning for programmatic media operations and advertising. And so definitely being aware and being open and aligning yourself and making these small hinge changes to your diet and lifestyle are important, but gathering the data that's bio-individual to you so that you don't have to stress about trying to figure it out. There's so many tests that are out there. There's so many things that you can do to get to the root cause and the root tactical execution of like, what specific things can I do so that I don't have to change everything in my day or get overwhelmed with all of these big changes or big steps or, complicated programs and processes. So that's what I'll say is be an explorer in your own life and gather your own data, because every body is different and every soul is different. And, you change and evolve over time too. So constantly be an explorer in your own life and gather that data so that you can make easy changes.
So thank you so much for both of you. And I encourage all the listeners to listen to this one again, because there's so many incredible distinctions, and I'm going to summarize just a few of them. First of all, micro distinctions or small hinges that make dramatic changes in your life. And the truth is that 1,000-mile journey starts off with one small step. And that is that journey that we need to all go on if we want to better ourselves. And that's the other question that the Hippocrates and other philosophers addressed, thousands of years ago. Not only is that food is thy medicine, but also that you have to be willing to make that change. Are you ready to give up this medical condition? So that's a key question that they already understood. And that's where that bio-individuality also happens, because what will work for one person will absolutely not work for another. And that's why you may have this allergic response to one thing, but not another, and end up in the hospital. And so these are the key distinctions that you will want to know. And finally, the most important thing that I think people need to understand is that the strongest healing force in nature is the one that you find within yourself. And so whatever you eat, whatever you give yourself, and whatever you're thinking, and we've talked about all those things today, is what's really going to make a difference. I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, and this is the Doctor's Guide podcast, raw and unfiltered. And I want to thank you both for a tremendous, podcast, very insightful. And one action step that anybody can take is reach out to Misha and Lindsay for their genius to support you in your own personalized health journey. Thank you so much. And we will be back with both of them on more shows. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bart.
Thank you.